program. I just want to be able to
Right.
know a little bit about it.
Yeah, I know a bit about this. We are holding this open, and there is a base of funding. There are 4 institutes, and they have provided, we need to have information from them. I have gotten some about, come forward, whoever's going to speak for ITS, some of the ways in which this research has been taken on by these institutes and has helped the state of California.
Not just sitting on the shelf.
No, exactly. That is really useful to the transportation system. So since we are holding it open, I'd like to hear a bit more about that, and then talk a little bit about what's being proposed. And I think one of the things it would be important to do is work with the Assembly Committee so that we come up with a common approach here. So why don't you tell us?
Thank you, Senator Wolk, and committee members for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Alex Bayen. I'm a faculty at UC Berkeley, professor in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department. I'm also the director of ITS Berkeley, one of the 4 branches of ITS, and a faculty scientist at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. Today, I represent the 4 branches of ITS, which are Berkeley, Davis, Irvine, and UCLA, and we're working with assistance of the University of California Office of the President, which works system-wide. Very brief 30 seconds background on ITS. ITS was founded in 1947 by an act of state legislature with an initial budget around $900,000, has been modified with very minor adjustments since this time and with no inflator. However, in these many decades, the Institute has grown a lot. As was mentioned earlier, we have 4 missions at ITS, one of them which is research and providing activities on technology and engineering on behalf of the state. The second one is education, educating the workforce. The third one is tech transfer, to bring this technology to the state. And finally, we have one of the most prominent libraries in transportation in the nation to serve California with various missions. Our goal is to address the state's priority related to the field of transportation and mobility. We, of course, work a lot with Caltrans. We've heard a lot from Director Dougherty earlier today, but we also work with a lot of other agencies, in particular the California Energy Commission, ARB, and many others. So over the last year, we've been working with various members here in the Sacramento community, in the Assembly and the Senate, specific for this budget change proposal, from the public transportation account to through the UC Office of the President. The goal of this BCP would be to establish an organization that can be more responsive to the state's needs in the field of transportation and partner with the state and with various agencies on these high-level priorities. I think several outcomes that will come out of these BCP is the notion that we will bring a lot more federal funding to California, in particular from the US DOT, but from many other departments in Washington, as well as private funds that can also come to California to create more jobs here. Secondly, I think it would be very important for us because we really want to be responsive to California's need, and right now we could benefit from a much stronger organization to do that. And finally, to also work to build a workforce for California that is more aligned with California's strategic interest. Right now, because a lot of the funding we're dealing with is soft money, we are responsive to everybody's needs, which is, of course, at the federal level, but also other states, and we want to really focus on California. Finally, I'd like to read from the briefing you've been given, 3 lines which really summarize best the goal here. So I'm just going to read from your briefing. According to the UC, this request provides funding sufficient to establish permanent, ongoing programmatic infrastructure that will allow ITS to respond to state policymakers' requests for ad hoc guidance and to engage actively with California's government at all levels. So with this kind of short introduction and background, I would be very happy to answer any questions you have on this topic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is there's a base funding of $900,000, and this is a request for a 3-year, $3 million a year increase to that. So as I looked at some of the issues, you have been already, for example, ITS Davis and Berkeley led in the design of the low carbon fuel standard in 2007, and also led on the effort to create the Sustainable Freight Action Plan, which was called for by the governor in an executive order as well as ITS Davis led the effort to create a ZEV plan for California in 2012. I mean, those are all things that are incorporated into, are being incorporated and provide.
Dr. Sperling did that.
Indeed. And it's true for all of these institutes. And you have a good working relationship. You have an MOU among you, so it's not everybody fighting, for a piece of the action. It's basically you've all sort of divided
duplicating.
or duplicating. I mean, I think that's a really positive way of approaching all this. So that's going to be held open. I'd like to see some augmentation, provided that we get a good justification for the kinds of things they'll be working on that are directly related to what the state needs, and in coordination with the Assembly. So we'll leave it open for that. Is there any, Malcolm?
Madam Chair, you had asked us a specific question about the impacts of this funding
Yes,
from
yes,
the
yes.
PTA to the STIP, and I'd like to introduce Stephen Keck to at least make sure that he answers that question for you. I will say that we have a tremendous partnership with all the UCs as well as other fine universities throughout California to do research, but you did ask us a specific question on the impact of to the STIP from the PTA.
That's correct.
And I want to make sure that we provide
Yes.
that answer.
Yes.
Thank you. Stephen Keck, I'm the Chief Budget Officer for Caltrans. So the way that the funding works for the STIP from the public transportation account is that first, all the priorities for funding from the PTA are funded, and this includes funding for Amtrak in California, funding for planning and development activities at Caltrans, funding for the Public Utilities Commission, the California Transportation Commission, and of course, these ITCs. Whatever funding is remaining after those things are paid for is funding available for the State Transportation Improvement Program. This is a program that I'm sure you've heard, especially from folks like Will Kempton, about the recent impact of that program because of declining gas taxes. Specifically, the excise tax that funds the STIP is that price-based excise tax that was a product of the 2010 fuel tax swap. That tax last year was 18 cents a gallon. This year, it's 12 cents a gallon. Next year, 9.8 cents a gallon. Huge impact to the STIP. The Commission has taken action to adopt a new fund estimate for the STIP that slashed about a third of the funding for that program, just about 30% of the funding. The PTA funds a small but significant portion of the STIP as well. About $200 million of the STIP capacity comes from the PTA over the 5-year period. I think that's something on the order of 13% of the total STIP capacity. So a proposal like this is $36 million over the next 5 years. That's $36 million out of that $200 million capacity. On a long-term basis, it's $45 million for each 5-year cycle. So that's basically the impact of the STIP you're looking at. $45 million per 5-year period in the long term, $36 million in this upcoming five-year period. And this comes at the same time the Commission is getting ready to take action to eliminate about $750 million worth of STIP projects that were programmed in the 2014 program cycle.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, that's why this is being held open.
certainly.
So we have to look at this in the totality, and we certainly hope that not only for the programs that you mentioned, the STIP programs, and for many others, we need an increase, and we need to come to an agreement in the legislature to do that. We're certainly ready to do that, and I know people are working on that. So it is being held open, and thank you for that information. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to also bring to your attention, or to the body's attention, that there is also funding available. There's like $15 million in funding available through the Energy Commission. There's research and innovative for emerging technologies for low carbon transportation fuels. So I'm not sure, this issue is new to me, but I'm not sure to what extent that avenue has been pursued also.
Like that suggestion. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right. Is there public comment on this issue? We're not taking action. It's being held open, but go ahead, Mr. Green.
Good afternoon, Senator
Welcome.
Wallach, members of the committee. I'm Larry Green. I'm the director of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District. Very much in support of this. As you well know, vehicular transportation, and all of the issues that are covered here at ITS are extremely important to our attainment in Sacramento. We've been working with this group for years at UC Davis, and they do great work in our community and have been very supportive of our mission at the Air District.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
Chair Wolkin, members, Joshua Shaw with the California Transit Association. Our public transit agencies and from time to time our association have worked closely, collaboratively, and I think productively with the ITSs on various projects that benefit local transit and statewide transit. So we do support the request. We acknowledge, however, the LAO's point and Mr. Keck's point and your staff's point that there is a trade-off. We are concerned about, of course, the diminishing returns from the STIP, including for public transit. We have supported, for instance, in your special session on transportation funding last year, bills by Senator Allen, Senator Hill, and others that would have raised new funds for transit, including one of those bills would have put new dollars into the PTA. So there needs to be a careful consideration. We would hope to work with the director and you and your staff on the allocation if this were something you were acted favorably on. But we do think it needs to be done. We've worked with Irvine and Davis, for instance, to analyze the new Expo light rail lines productivity and relative to reducing greenhouse gas emissions on Expo line ridership to the west side of LA. Our association has used UCLA to facilitate a program quite recently for a lot of our transit managers in scenario planning. Very practical and some very good theoretical work, so we support the request, urge you to find a way. It's been too long since ITS has been able to offer more of those kinds of services to the transit industry while we are mindful of the trade-offs. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next, please.
Hi, I'm Gordon Gary. I'm the Director of Research and Analysis at the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. SACOG is very much in support of this request. We've had a long-standing partnership, primarily with Davis, but we've used the research and to benefit our work in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Sustainable Community Strategy, and our other planning programs over the years, because we are really focused very much on performance-based planning. Good research is fundamental and absolutely critical. We find that the ITS program is a good source for that. Plus, they're a good source for our staff. Currently, we have several postgraduate staff members on staff at SACOG who came from the ITS program. So we're in support of this request. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And sir?
Hi, my name is Alan Thompson. I'm a transportation planner with the Southern California Association of Governments, representing 6 counties and 19 million California residents. We strongly support the full funding of for the Institute of Transportation Studies. Adequate funding has eroded over the past 70 years, acting as a brake on the ability of the institution to meet its core needs. SCAG relies on ITS, particularly UCLA and UC Irvine, to augment our research activities. Data, as you know, is critical for policymakers such as yourself to make informed decisions about the future. Our Regional Transportation Plan, Sustainable Community Strategy, we just adopted last week, is a data-driven document. The plan goes out 25 years to 2040 and relies on new technologies, transportation innovations to meet greenhouse gas reductions, provide new transportation opportunities, and guide where residents will live and businesses will locate. ITS help provide critical research on automated vehicles, sustainable goods movement, and greenhouse gas reduction. Just to reiterate what they said before, since we're talking about the future, ITS provides graduates who are ready for work on day one. Just yesterday, our legal counsel mentioned a staff member, it was our 5-year anniversary, who was surprisingly knowledgeable regarding compliance with SB 375 in our plans, as well as what other MPOs were doing. When asked just how long she'd been at SCAG, she goes, "Oh, just a couple weeks." And was already that well informed and knowledgeable and working. And that's the added benefit that the Institute of Transportation Studies provides. Providing the data, providing new staff, well-trained not just in what's done in the past, but with new innovative ways of moving forward. We strongly support full funding of ITS to continue and provide those benefits. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Further comment? All right, we are holding that open. Any comment from the members? All right, let's move on to the last item.